Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another live stream. I'm so thrilled to be back with another delicious recipe. This featured from the new book, Baking Wisdom. I know some of you already have it in hand. Cassandra, I saw you already have it, and you made plans. Actually, I picked this recipe specifically because if you do celebrate Easter, it's Easter weekend coming up, and it would be a special one because there's something about this time of year. Now on this hemisphere, we're getting excited about spring, so I start thinking about lighter flavors like lemon and strawberries. And this is an Eton mess with a big twist. Oh, there's Bonnie, Suzanne, and Bruce. I have to say hello to you too. Welcome home. And I know Kathy and Craig, you'll be joining me a little bit later. Denise and Harold, how are you doing? It's been ages, so I hope everyone's doing great. Hello from sunny Mexico. Yes, please. And Missouri and Newfoundland. It's so great to see so many people joining us from all around. And as I said, I am going to make an Eton mess, which it does refer to it being a bit of a mess. It's not Eton as in E-A-T-I-N apostrophe. It's the college in England where it was created. My version has a twist. So a traditional Eton mess is a crisp meringue folded into whipped cream with strawberries and a little bit of sugar and vanilla. I'm going through the extra step of making a lemon curd. And so we're gonna swirl a lemon curd through the cream, and then I'll tint the meringue pink so you get that sort of play on the pink lemonade. I think it's a perfect dessert for springtime. And so the three parts, we're actually, while it's a straight ahead recipe, it's great because you can assemble all the parts ahead of time, but you want to make sure you actually assemble the dessert right before you serve it. Because you want to keep that meringue a bit crunchy. It starts to soften, and within about an hour, it goes really soft. So what we're going to master is a basic French meringue. We're going to make a basic lemon curd, talk about whipped cream a little bit, and then have a delicious dessert at the very end. Marianne, all the way from Mississauga, Ontario. Woo! I'll be driving through there early tomorrow morning. And from Spain, this is great. Chris is asking what we did on the weekend. We worked. Where was I? I was at the Hamilton Spring Home Garden Show on the weekend. That's right. It feels like so long ago. I can't even remember. But thank you for asking. We did take time, though, to have really nice dinners together in the evening. Oh, that's so nice. You want to try my delicious dishes. And hello from Greenland. Well, wonderful. We've only flown over it on our way to Iceland. Have never visited. Would love to someday. Okay, let's start the Eton mess by making the French meringue. I have 2 egg whites in my mixer already. Large egg whites, they're at room temperature. And a simple French meringue is egg whites whipped with sugar. Just, you don't cook it, you don't heat it, you bake it afterwards. To coax the best volume out of my egg whites, I'm adding a little cream of tartar, which is just acidity. So you could add a splash of lemon juice or a splash of white vinegar in place of the cream of tartar and still accomplish the same things. You don't have to be afraid of a few droplets of water or liquid when you're whipping your egg whites. What you want to be wary of is any fat, and that's why any bits from a yolk, or you want to wipe out your mixing bowl if you were doing a buttercream earlier, you want to make sure you're clear of that. I'm going to start whipping my whites, and as they get foamy, I'll slowly add my sugar. I've already measured it, but your basic ratio for a standard French meringue is 50 grams of sugar for every 1 egg white. So now you know you can make a little or you can make a lot. So I'll start this whipping, and I'll keep an eye on the feed while I'm adding the sugar, and I'm going to whip this to a stiff peak. Oh, Chris wasn't that far away. Oh, I missed who had cousins in Hamilton. Maria from Melbourne, Australia. Well, you're not going into spring right now. You're heading into fall, aren't you? I hope you had an amazing summer season and your fall flavors. I hope they're delicious. Still a little bit tropical and warm weather like, I hope. Oh, chocolate tort. That's a good one. Roxy is asking a great question. Can I use aquafaba instead? You can. I have not made it in this recipe. Now, if you're making a vegan version of the whole dessert, you're gonna have to switch out a number of ingredients in every component. If you're just steering clear of the egg whites, then you would use 30 ml for every 1 egg white. So 2 tablespoons essentially. It takes about 3 times the amount of time to whip it up. So while this will take about 3 minutes, using aquafaba, which is the strain, for those who don't know, it's a strained liquid from a tin of cooked chickpeas, and by the unsalted, it will take about, where this takes 3 minutes, it'll take almost 10 minutes to whip up your aquafaba. But it's pure protein, and you can spread it on the baking tray, bake it at a low temperature, and it will crisp up for you. So I hope that answers your question. And Nabil is asking, do I measure my ingredients? Well, you see, in order to achieve what I do in the time I need to, I do pre-measure everything you see here. I prefer most of the time measuring by weight. So you'll see my recipes come in metric, in grams, and by volume. Because in North America, we still do measure by volume a lot. So I compare and we test constantly. So I have one recipe tester who tests just by volume and another recipe tester who tests just by weight. And we compare to make sure the results always come out the same. Oh, Audrey made the hot cross buns. It's a perfect time of year for hot cross buns. And I'm just waiting for the 2 egg whites to whip up. When you have that small of a volume, it can take a little while for the beaters to kind of find the whites and pull themselves up. Oh, I should know, when you're getting to ready to bake your meringue, sheet of meringue, you want to preheat your oven to a low temperature, 200 degrees, and if you can, have the fan shut off. Because you don't want to promote any browning or overcooking, because we want to color the meringue pink and keep it nice and pink. Chris is asking if you would ever co-host with me. Michael's got a full-time job running all these cameras. I don't know, and the sound. Would you? Maybe. Maybe. He'll think about it. Oh, and hello, Renee. And oh, someone else is making hot cross buns too. And Hidir is living in Toronto, so not very far away. Oh my gosh. Oh, and abiding on the straight and narrow. I like that handle. It's just joined in. To recap, if you've just joined me, I am making a pink lemonade version of Eton mess, which is cream strawberries and crisp meringue, but also a lemon curd, and we're coloring that meringue pink. So I'm just gonna add the color by hand instead of using the mixer because it's just a little noisy. And that means now I can get it out of the way. And you let me know, Michael, if I have to move things around so everybody can see. All right. So I've got my pink food coloring. This is a food coloring gel. I find the liquid's a bit thin sometimes, but 1 drop can go a long way. And the color does continue to intensify as it sits. So that was literally 1 droplet that came out, and I don't want to add any more pink than that. So that's going to just weave a lovely color through my Eton mess when I assemble everything together. You've got your parchment lined baking tray ready. I'll grab a spatula. And now I want to spread the meringue in a nice even layer because I want it to crisp up. I don't want it to discolor, so I'd like that to happen as quickly as possible, yet still at a low temperature. So that means I'll take my offset spatula and just spread it. You don't have to have the meringue hit the corners of the baking tray at all. That just makes one more dish to wash. So just spread it in a nice even layer over the parchment, as level as possible, but no one is going to see this part of the recipe. It will all be crushed and crumbled into pieces eventually. There we go. Nice even layer there. Now, how easy was that? If you're making your plans, this is something, if you're going to serve it on Sunday, you can make this on Saturday. And if by chance it's a rainy day, and you make your meringue ahead of time and you find when you go and check the next morning it's a little bit tacky to the touch because maybe it's humid outside, you can put it back in that 200-degree oven and let it just dry out for about 10 minutes and it'll crisp back up again. So you don't have to worry about that. This is going to take about 40 minutes at 200 degrees. Now don't be afraid when you pull it out of the oven, it's going to seem soft at first, but what you're looking for is right now you can see it's super glossy, but when it's dry, it becomes very matte. It'll lose its shine altogether. So into the oven it goes, eyeing the time right there. And just to show you what it looks like, cooled and dry, it's light as a feather, it peels away from the parchment. And then we get, oh, that does have to go. I'm going to put this in the oven. It's been a rainy day here in Southern Ontario. I'm going to put that in the oven and let it dry out while I'm cooking the other one. Now I will set the timer on that one. There we go. Well, that gives me time to take care of the lemon curd. And who here loves a good lemon curd? A nice tart one, but it has to be creamy at the same time. I'm just taking a peek here. I've got a little pop-up screen I'm gonna get rid of. Ooh, Karen says, could I use strawberry freeze-dried powder in place of the pink food coloring? Yes, you could, and wouldn't that just enhance the flavor? So just fold in, I would say you wouldn't need more than 2 teaspoons to maybe a tablespoon to give a nice natural color and flavor. And what's my favorite type of lemonade? I actually like an Arnold Palmer, and it's half lemonade, half iced tea. That's my preference. Now, a little something I've been making lemonade. I'm thinking about lemonade now. I've been thinking of making lemon curd for such a long time, and I used to always do it over a water bath, whisking. Your egg yolks, your lemon, your sugar, and your butter, whisk, whisk, whisk. And over a water bath, it would take so much time. When I had a pastry chef friend say, oh, why do you bother doing that? You can just do it stovetop. The acidity from the lemon protects the eggs. You won't overcook your lemon curd. And so now that's the way I do it. I do use a little bit of cornstarch. So first I'm adding my sugar to the pot, and I do have a small measure of cornstarch that's going to give it just that final silky thickening characteristic. And I need to give that a little whisk. Yes, I'll use that whisk. And so the reason I put the dry ingredients in the bowl first is that way I can blend in the cornstarch easily. I've got my fresh lemon juice. And if you're making a lemon dessert, you have to use the fresh lemon juice. I know we can buy bottled and it's rather affordable, and I don't mind a splash here or a splash there, but if lemon is the key ingredient, I want to use fresh lemon. And Jane loves everything lemon, and hello to Kirsty from Brockville. Thank you for joining me today. I see we have a good crowd. Oh, Amanda, you can find the complete recipe just below the screen. So if you open up the show more, the full recipe is right there for all the measurements you see here. I'm zesting in my lemon. Really want to build in that lemon flavor because the juice lends tartness, but it's actually, in terms of flavor intensity, mild in that lemon world. You could do a lime curd just as easily if you wanted to. And now I'll give that a stir. And I already have my 3 yolks and 1 whole egg, so I saved the yolks from my meringue and just had to add a couple more. And it's really the egg yolks that give a lemon curd its bright color. And now I'll bring my butter over to the stove because I want to get this heating up. I'm going to do it on medium-high. That whisk likes to spring away sometimes. And I'm going to break the butter into pieces. Here, let me go this way. I think it's easier if I talk this way, especially because I use my left hand most of the time. And those butter pieces are going to melt in. And I'll just give this a little stir. And what we're looking for, so you don't really have to worry about the eggs getting overcooked over the direct heat. You don't want to cook on high heat, but you want to reach that point where you just begin to see steam and a bubble or two break the surface. And then you know your eggs are fully cooked and your lemon curd will set. It will appear thin because, of course, the butter is melted within it. Oh, it's such a pretty color, and I can smell the lemon along with the butter at the same time. Oh, hello from Pakistan. Thank you for joining me. Have I used yuzu before, and could you use it as a substitute? It's true, it has a stronger flavor, but it yet is slightly less acidic. You could, and use it in a one-to-one substitution. It would be absolutely beautiful. That's why sometimes I like a little lime zest, even in my lemon desserts, because it adds a floral perfume. We can only buy bottled yuzu juice here where we are. If you can get fresh, ooh, definitely go for it. Oh, here's a question. Cecilia's asking, can she make marzipan? Because I did make my Swedish semlor last week using homemade marzipan. Can she make it with Brazil nuts? That's a good question. I have never tried, but because an almond is a very firm nut and so is a Brazil nut, if you can get the grind fine enough of your Brazil nuts, I would say yes, you could. I would definitely give it a try, and I don't think I would change any proportions. I think you would have trouble if you were trying to make a marzipan using pecans or walnuts or a softer, more tender nut. And usually you would mix almonds with a heavily flavored nut, like a pistachio. I don't think you would ever make with pure pistachios. You would mix almond and pistachio together. Hello from South Africa. And the question Emily is asking is, what will my next live stream be? And we have a 2-week gap. So I won't be here next Tuesday with a live stream, but you will find an episode of Baking Wisdom launching on this day, on Tuesdays at the same time. So keep an eye out for that. So to answer your question, Emily, I don't know. I don't think I've decided. Michael and I were talking about it this morning, and I was tossing around. No, that was for a taped episode. I was going to do coconut chiffon cake. Well, why don't you weigh in? What would you like me to make? Because I'll put that into consideration. I'd love to hear. Is it time for something like a chocolate mousse? I could make I have a recipe for a milk chocolate orange mousse that is really simple. Or because here in Canada, it's sugar shack season. It's when the maple syrup, the sap runs. And so I have a recipe for a maple butterscotch pudding that is also pretty good. That might be a fun one to make. And Rebecca's asking, instead of marzipan, could I use frangipan? It depends on what you're using your marzipan for. Marzipan can turn into frangipan. Frangipan is usually butter and sugar creamed together, ground almonds and egg, and it's used and baked as a filling in tart shells and in pastries. So raw, it's softer and thinner to work with. So depending on what you're using it for, you potentially could. It's a good question. Oh, my hot cross bun muffins. That is a good recipe. Thank you, Emily, for bringing that up. I think that might be popping up on my social media feed soon, so keep an eye out for that one too. And then Tihana is looking for a coconut milk dessert. Oh, I like that idea too. Well, I do have my coconut chiffon cake. Is a really, really, really good recipe, and it tastes like coconut, though it's light and airy and spongy. Oh, crepe cake. Oh, and stroopwafel. That's a good request. I don't think I actually have a recipe for that one yet. I would have to work on that, but duly noted. And so it might be good for a lighter fruity dessert in 2 weeks. Maybe a trifle. Oh, a nice fruity trifle, Jonah, would be a good idea. Now, as I'm reading and whisking at the same time, I can feel the pull. The lemon curd is starting to thicken up, and you can see the steam. I'm sure you can see the steam, right, Michael? Coming off of the pot? Kind of, okay. While I'm whisking, I'm gonna move my bowl forward and my sour cream. Oh, you can always count on a little sour cream from me. Hot cross buns with cheese. Ooh, boy. Oh, Rebecca's asking about using the frangipane in the semolor. That would work just fine. But make sure you've got it cooked so that you're not adding egg to it. But you could do butter and sugar, cream butter and sugar and ground almonds together and add some extract, and I'm sure it would be absolutely fine. A sweet dough recipe. Ooh, you can find my millionaire tart recipe right here on the channel. It just launched a couple of weeks ago. That has a really good sweet dough recipe, a pâte sablé, and my secret ingredient for it, cooked egg yolk. I know, it's crazy, but it makes a huge difference. Okay, I need to get a move on here. And it has been about 10 minutes because I can see my meringue that I'm re-crisping is coming out of the oven. So this is the consistency of the lemon curd when it's cooked. And I'm just gonna show you the inside of the pot. See how it's clinging to the inside of the pot? So you know you've got the thickening power activated there. And let me go get my re-crisped meringue. And now we have to let it cool a little bit. So I'm just going to take it off the tray. Oh, yep, I hear you. There we go. And get it on a rack, because I want it to cool down in time to fold into the whipped cream. So now to halt the cooking of my lemon curd, and you can even see how it jiggles a little bit. It's already starting to cool, but to halt the cooking, I hold back my sour cream and I add that when the lemon curd comes off the heat, and I find it adds a beautiful creaminess. You could use plain Greek yogurt if you didn't have the sour cream or didn't want to use the sour cream. And you just give this a good little whisk in. And I find it really sets the lemon curd apart. Because you've got the creaminess from the butter, you've got the tartness from the lemon juice, and the sour cream just kind of sits in the middle. Oh, David, I like that idea. I should make a carrot cake. And a good question from Lisa is, do I need to strain the custard? You know, I find with this proportion, I used to strain it, and I would strain it and there'd be nothing left. The strainer would be empty. And so I have found I don't always need to strain it. If you're unsure or you'd like to pull out the lemon zest pieces, well then I welcome you to. You let this sit cool on the counter to room temperature. And the reason you do that is just so you're not putting something hot into your fridge, warming up the fridge, creating condensation. So I'll set that aside. And you don't need, I should point out, that for this pink lemonade Eton mess, you don't need the full recipe of the lemon curd. But if you're going to make it, you'll have it on hand. It's spring. There's a pavlova recipe in Baking Wisdom that this would be delicious with and topped with fresh fruit. You can fill that. We were talking about a sweet pastry. Could be filled with this, topped with meringue. More for that French style lemon tart as opposed to the North American lemon meringue pie. So I'll set this aside. It keeps for quite a while in the fridge, so it's not like it has to be used within a matter of days. I only need a little bit to really add punch to my Eton mess. And now we're getting close to assembly here. Oh, here's an interesting question. Well, a couple. Pistachio crema, love it. I have a full jar sitting in my pantry. I need an excuse to use it. The easiest way to use something like that is to any recipe that might call for a peanut butter or a nut paste, you would work it in. So if you made a pastry cream and while it's still warm, whisked in a couple tablespoons of that pistachio crema, you've made yourself the most decadent pistachio pastry cream. Be great to fill desserts with. And where would I use cocoa butter? Now that's a different use. Quite often, if I'm using cocoa butter, it's more in the confectionery side of the world. So to work with chocolates and chocolate fillings and ganaches and such. I haven't used it a whole lot as a baking ingredient, but that's a very good question to ask. And where do I get my mixing bowls from? Well, Chris, this one actually came from the wonderful Kat Tieran, who is the prop stylist. So when you go through the pictures of Baking Wisdom, she finds these treasures, including these bowls. So I made her leave this here, and I have one with a pink lining too. So she finds all these treasures. We take the photos because I have a lot of cake stands, but I don't have that many cake stands, and she supplies it. Okay, so moving on to the assembly of the Eton mess, and I'm just checking. Oh, and there it is. The meringue has crisped up again. It is cool enough. That's why I was stalling just a second there. I wanted to make sure it was cool because I didn't want more meringue to melt the whipped cream. So the recipe calls for 1 cup of whipping cream that I've whipped up, and I just whipped it up by hand because it's only a cup, but you could do this with the beaters. Now, I've talked about how when you make an Eton mess, pardon me, you want to assemble it right before you serve it, but you want to have all the components ready, especially if you're having a big group over, if it's friends and family coming for dinner. So in order to whip your cream ahead of time and not have it weep after it sits in the fridge, and by that I mean, you know, when you whip your cream, you put it in the fridge, and an hour or two later, it like separates from the side of the bowl and gets a little liquid in the bottom. Well, to stabilize your whipped cream, you add 1 tablespoon of instant skim milk powder, not the regular skim milk powder. You have to use the instant because it will dissolve instantly in your whipping cream. Because instant skim milk powder is pure protein, it binds with the fat that's been whipped and the air that's been whipped into the cream, and it just holds it and freezes it in time. So your whipped cream will stay whipped. I've added it now because I'm talking to you. You could add it at the beginning of the whipping process if you want, just at any time. And then a little bit of icing sugar. And I'll just give that a little stir in. And the reason I've opted for the icing sugar is because it dissolves quickly. You won't get those little granules. Oh, and I should mention, I've already added my vanilla to the cream. And so that separates, that's the distinction between just whipped cream and a Chantilly cream. And that little bit of vanilla goes a long way. So now what I'll do is bring over my cooled, re-crisped meringue. I'm so glad I was able to show you that because it does. It happens all the time. And boy, has it been a rainy day. And then you crumble in those meringue pieces. You don't have to break them into small pieces because as you stir and fold it in, they'll break down further. And then so you have that lovely hint of pink. Jonah's asking, have I ever tried using a milk frother to whip cream? I haven't, but I would be certainly willing to give that a try. Oh, and thank you from the Philippines for your regular support. I used to be on Asian Food Channel down there for quite some time. Okay, so what we're learning is make sure you have a big bowl. When you're breaking down your meringue going everywhere. I just have a few little bits. Those could go back in the oven. Oh, no, they crisped up. Look at that. They were just stuck. Wow, love it. And I just love this sound. It sounds like I'm folding styrofoam into the cream. I've got 2 cups of strawberries. Now around here, our hothouse strawberries are just starting. We're not gonna see field strawberries until June. If you've got local fruits you'd rather use, someone was asking me earlier, could you use a mix? The recipe actually says use a mix of strawberries and raspberries if you wish. I love lemon raspberry desserts, so I think that's why I went with the strawberry and raspberry, even though strawberry is traditional. And then I'll give that a quick fold. So right now we're dealing with just a regular Eton mess. And I wait until the end because I don't want to overmix the lemon curd in the Eton mess, but I put a few dollops and kind of swirl it around. So now with every bite you get the creaminess, you get the crunch, the sweetness of the meringue, a berry, and then pooh, there's the lemon just waiting for you. And by all means, if you are such a big fan of lemon desserts, put more lemon curd in. I invite it. Handy thing about this dessert, it just happens to be naturally gluten-free. There's no flour added to it, so it's a real crowd pleaser. And you can see, I hope you can see, Michael, I've just folded so you can see the lemon still in there, along with the pink. Now, Karen, asking a good question. Could you use frozen fruit? Well, the nice thing about frozen fruit, it's picked peak season, frozen. The challenge you're dealing with is it can be very watery. So what I would do is if you're using frozen fruit, thaw it, make sure you drain the excess water, and then fold it into the cream. It should be absolutely fine. Some fruits thaw better than others, like a blueberry would be delicious. Raspberries might be a little bit wet. But you can buy really good frozen strawberries, but something like pineapple, or you can buy sweet cherries now that are frozen. So many options. You know, when I share these recipes with you, I love when you actually take them and make them your own. And I love hearing about your successful results. And Tijana is asking, how long will the meringue stay crunchy in this recipe? Not very long. So this is why you want to assemble it right before you serve it so that it will stay crunchy. It softens up the minute you fold it into the cream, and you've probably got about an hour, maybe a little more, before it all of a sudden it dissolves into the cream itself. It's still delicious. Have I eaten the leftovers of this a day, 2 days old? Yes, I have. And have I enjoyed it? Yes, I have. So it just changes the texture more than anything else. Now, Michael, Tammy is asking, what is your favorite dessert?
The next one.
Whatever the next, did you hear that? The next one. So I think it's pink lemonade Eaton mess for dessert tonight for both of us. Yeah, see, there still is a crunch to the meringue, freshly folded. But it looks so pretty. Put it on the table, let everyone get their photos, start posting, and you will be thrilled. And Jonah, yes, you can make, depending on your weather, if it's very humid, I wouldn't make the meringue more than a day ahead. You can actually make it a couple days ahead if the climate's going to be dry. But now you know the tip. If it's tacky after it sits for a little bit because of ambient humidity, in the oven, 200 degrees, 10 minutes, fixes it right up. You saw it happen. So I hope that answers your question. And Tammy liked your answer, Michael. Oh, and Vishal's asking about brownies with black cocoa powder. And yes, and they were very dry and crumbly. Oh, Vishal, that happens. Yes, there is a difference between black cocoa powder and regular. While the color is intense in black cocoa powder, it is the lowest fat. We don't think of cocoa powder having a fat content, but the better cocoa powders have upwards. They start at about 12% cocoa fat, up to 24. And black cocoa is about as lean as you can get. And that's likely why, while I bet the color was beautiful, your brownies come out dry and crumbly. What I recommend you do, if you want that intense black cocoa color and the flavor in there, go for at least a 50-50 mix. So use half black cocoa and half regular cocoa in your recipes, and I know you'll be much happier. That's a very, very good question. Oh, I'm so appreciative of your kind words. Oh my gosh, Kayleen's been washing since fresh. Oh, that apple cranberry crumble. I love getting reminded about recipes that I haven't made in so long. And this time of year, hothouse rhubarb is around the corner. You could make a rhubarb apple crumble very easily. Well, I'm gonna take a bite here. Oh, and your writing from Panama. Wonderful. The strawberry with the lemon. I actually get the lemon and strawberry first, and then I get the cream and the crunch. And so I love that something that can look so messy and yet beautiful at the same time can be taste so complex. You've got all the good dessert textures going on. Meringue and cream and fruit and a lemon curd. We've got so many people watching us right now. We have over 200 people watching this moment. I'm so glad you could join us. And remember that my live stream videos, just like this one, end up right here on the channel. So if you want to revisit it, pick up a few more tips, I invite you. Now, just a reminder, I won't be here next Tuesday with a live stream, but there will be a special, it's a cake, video dropping right here at 6:30 next Tuesday. It has been wonderful spending time with you. I really, well, Lisa does kind of have that ambrosia salad, minus the, what goes in ambrosia? Marshmallows. No marshmallows, but it's, I guess it's the idea. Crispy meringue is in that family. But colorful and fun. I'm so glad and grateful for your support. Please check out the recipe below. If you're interested in exploring baking and you have a curiosity around it, I know Baking Wisdom is a book that will make you happy and just have you in the kitchen, baking and playing and knowing that I've got the guidance there to support you. So I will see you very soon. And now I have to feed Michael his next favorite dessert. Pink lemonade, Eton mess. Cheers, everyone. Have a great evening. I didn't even offer you a bowl.